Marcus Chen stared at the alien woman kneeling before him in the cramped maintenance bay of the deep space station Kepler 442. Her skin shimmered with an ethereal blue-silver hue that seemed to pulse with her heartbeat, and her large, luminous eyes held a desperation he had never seen before in any sentient being. "Please," she whispered, her voice carrying a musical quality that made the universal translator struggle to convey the raw emotion behind her words. "You must marry me. It is my last hope." Marcus set down his plasma wrench and wiped his oil-stained hands on his coveralls. 6 months ago, he had been just another maintenance engineer, keeping the life support systems running on humanity's most distant outpost. Now, apparently, he was being proposed to by Zarath, the daughter of the Veltai Empire's High Council. The Veltai were an ancient race, their civilization spanning millennia before humans had even discovered fire. They possessed technology that seemed like magic to most species, including humans. Their ships could fold space-time, their medicine could cure any disease, and their knowledge of the universe was vast beyond comprehension. Yet here was one of their nobility, prostrating herself before a grease-monkey human. "I don't understand," Marcus said, helping her to her feet. Her skin was surprisingly warm despite its alien appearance. "Your people barely acknowledge humans exist. We're newcomers to the galactic community. Why would you want to marry someone like me?" Zarath's eyes filled with what could only be tears, though they sparkled like liquid starlight. "Because you are human," she said simply. "And because of what humans represent." 3 days earlier, Marcus had encountered Zarath for the first time. She had arrived on Kepler 442 as part of a diplomatic envoy, supposedly conducting routine inspections of the various alien species outposts in the sector. The station commander had been beside himself with nervousness, ordering every surface polished and every system running at peak efficiency. Marcus had been working on a malfunctioning atmospheric recycler when she had found him. Most alien dignitaries avoided the maintenance sections, considering such work beneath their notice. But Zarath had sought him out specifically. "You are the one they call Marcus Chen," she had said, her universal translator giving her words a formal, stilted quality. "That's me," he had replied, not looking up from his work. "Though most people just call me Mac." "Mac," she had repeated, testing the shortened name. "I've been studying your species. Humans are interesting." Marcus had finally looked up then, struck by the genuine curiosity in her voice. "Interesting how?" "Your people have been part of the galactic community for less than 50 standard years," she had explained, moving closer to observe his work. "Yet you have established colonies on 17 worlds, trading partnerships with 12 species, and your technology, while primitive, shows remarkable innovation." "Thanks, I think," Marcus had said dryly. "It was not meant as flattery," Zarath had continued. "It is a statement of fact. Most species require centuries to achieve what humans have accomplished in decades. My people have been watching you." That conversation had been the beginning of something Marcus couldn't quite define. Over the following days, Zarath had sought him out repeatedly. She asked endless questions about human culture, history, and most surprisingly, about Marcus himself. She wanted to know about his childhood on Earth, about the terraforming projects on Mars where his parents had worked, about his decision to leave the inner colonies for the frontier. She listened with an intensity that was both flattering and slightly unnerving. "Why the fascination with humans?" Marcus had asked during one of their conversations. Zarath had been quiet for a long moment. "My people are old, Mac. Older than you can imagine. We have seen civilizations rise and fall like waves on a shore. We have grown comfortable, complacent. We no longer innovate, we simply maintain what we have built." "That doesn't sound so bad," Marcus had said. "Stability has its merits." "Does it?" Zarath had challenged. When was the last time your people created something truly new? Marcus had thought about it. Yesterday, probably. My buddy Jake in engineering just figured out how to boost the efficiency of our fusion reactors by 12% using some kind of magnetic field manipulation he invented. Exactly, Zareth had said, her eyes lighting up. Your people never stop trying to improve, to grow, to become more than what you are. It is remarkable. Now, standing in the maintenance bay with Zareth kneeling before him, Marcus was beginning to understand that her interest in humanity went deeper than academic curiosity. Explain it to me, he said gently. From the beginning. Zareth stood slowly, composing herself with visible effort. My people face extinction, Mac. Not from war or disease, but from our own success. We have become so advanced, so comfortable, that we have lost the will to continue. What do you mean? Our birth rates have been declining for millennia. We no longer see the point in creating new life when the old simply continues indefinitely. My generation may be the last to be born naturally. The Council speaks of transitioning to artificial immortality, uploading our consciousness to quantum matrices and abandoning physical existence entirely. Marcus felt a chill despite the warmth of the station. And you don't want that? I want to live, Mac. Really live. I want to feel uncertainty, possibility, the thrill of not knowing what tomorrow will bring. I want to create something new, to leave a mark on the universe that is uniquely mine. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke, passion driving away desperation. I want what humans have. Which is? Hope, she said simply. Humans never give up hope. Even when facing impossible odds, even when logic dictates failure, humans find a way to keep moving forward. My people have forgotten what hope feels like. Marcus sat down heavily on a nearby crate, his mind reeling. So you want to marry me because marriage between our species is forbidden by Veltai law. If I marry you, I will be exiled from my people, stripped of my titles and my place in society. I will become, in effect, human. That's a hell of a thing to give up. It is not giving up, Zareth said fiercely. It is choosing life over existence. But I cannot do it alone, Mac. I need someone who understands what it means to hope, to struggle, to build something meaningful with your bare hands. Marcus looked down at his calloused palms, stained with years of honest work. Why me specifically? There are billions of humans in the galaxy. Because you represent what is best about your species. You left comfort and safety to come here, to the frontier, where every day brings new challenges. You take broken things and make them work. You see problems as opportunities rather than obstacles. When the life support systems failed last month and everyone else was panicking, you worked for 18 straight hours to find a solution. That's just my job. No, Mac, that is who you are. That is what being human means. Marcus stood up and began pacing the small space. The implications of what she was asking were staggering. Marriage to an alien noble would make him the most famous human in the galaxy overnight. It would also make him the most hated by her people. What exactly would this marriage entail? He asked. Everything, Zareth said quietly. We would be bound together by Veltai law, which recognizes no divorce. I would become human in all but biology, and you would become part of something larger than yourself. And your people? They'll just let you walk away? For the first time since entering the maintenance bay, Zareth smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. My people will try to stop us. The High Council will not allow a noble daughter to voluntarily exile herself, especially not to join what they consider a primitive species. They will use every resource at their disposal to prevent this marriage. Marcus stopped pacing. So we're talking about more than just a wedding. We're talking about a war. Perhaps. But that is a human problem, is it not? Facing impossible odds and finding a way to win? Despite himself, Marcus grinned. You have been studying us. I have learned that humans do not retreat when they believe in something. The question is, do you believe in this? Do you believe in us? Marcus looked into her luminous eyes and saw something that transcended species boundaries. He saw courage, determination, and yes, hope. She was asking him to leap into the unknown, to risk everything for the possibility of something extraordinary. If I say yes, he said slowly, there's no going back for either of us. There is never any going back, Mac. There is only moving forward. Marcus thought about his life on the station, maintaining systems that kept hundreds of beings alive. It was good work, important work, but it was also safe work. Zarath was offering him something else entirely, a chance to be part of something that could change the galaxy. Your people will hunt us. Yes. We'll be exiles. Yes. We might die. We might, she agreed, but we will live first. Marcus extended his hand to her. Then yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Zarath took his hand, and in that moment, Marcus felt the weight of destiny settling around them both. They were no longer just individuals making a personal choice. They were representatives of two very different philosophies of existence, and their union would send shockwaves through the established order of the galaxy. When? He asked. Now, Zarath said urgently. Before my people realize what I intend. The marriage ceremony can be performed by any station official with authority. Your commander has the necessary jurisdiction. Marcus nodded, his engineer's mind already working through the practical problems. We'll need witnesses, documentation, and a way to make sure the marriage is legally binding under both human and galactic law. Already arranged, Zarath said, producing a datapad from her robes. I have prepared all necessary documents. I told you, Mac, I have been planning this for some time. As they left the maintenance bay together, Marcus Recommander Sarah Hayes stared at the marriage documents on her desk as if they might spontaneously combust. The words were clear enough, written in both Standard Galactic and Earth English, but their implications were staggering. You want me to officiate a marriage between you and the daughter of the Veltai High Council, she said slowly, looking between Marcus and Zarath. The same High Council that could turn this entire sector into cosmic dust if they felt insulted. That's about the size of it, Marcus replied, his typical casual tone belying the magnitude of what they were asking. Commander Hayes had run Kepler 442 for 8 years. She had dealt with smugglers, pirates, diplomatic incidents, and 3 separate attempts at secession by mining colonies. Nothing had prepared her for this. Mac, you're asking me to potentially start an interstellar war over a wedding. No, ma'am, Marcus said respectfully. I'm asking you to witness a legal union between 2 consenting adults under human law. What happens after that is up to the galaxy. Zarath stepped forward. Commander Hayes, I understand your concern, but this marriage will be conducted according to human customs and human law. My people cannot object to humans following their own legal procedures within human territory. Can't they? Hayes asked skeptically. Because I'm pretty sure they can object to whatever they want and back it up with weapons that make our best ships look like toys. Marcus had anticipated this objection. During his years on the frontier, he had learned that the key to solving any problem was breaking it down into manageable pieces. Commander, what's the first rule of diplomacy out here? Hayes sighed. Never give alien powers an excuse to interfere in human affairs. Exactly. And if we conduct this marriage properly, according to our laws in our territory, between consenting adults, then the Veltai have no legal grounds for interference. We're not breaking any galactic treaties. What about their own laws forbidding this kind of union? Their laws apply to their citizens in their territory, Zarath interjected. Once I marry Mac, I forfeit my citizenship. I become legally a human. Their laws no longer apply to me. Hayes rubbed her temples. There's got to be something I'm missing. This sounds too simple. The simple part is the law, Marcus admitted. The complicated part is what happens when they ignore the law and come after us anyway. Before Hayes could respond, her communications officer burst into the office. Commander, we've got a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple Veltai warships entering the sector. ETA 6 hours. The room fell silent. Hayes looked at the young officer. How many ships? 17 confirmed, ma'am, including 3 Sovereignty-class dreadnoughts. Hayes felt her blood turn to ice. A single Veltai dreadnought could sterilize a planet. 3 could take on the entire human fleet and win. They know, Zarath said quietly. Someone in my delegation must have discovered my plans and reported back to the council. Well, Marcus said with characteristic human understatement, this complicates things. Hayes was already moving into crisis management mode. All right, people. We have 6 hours before an overwhelming alien fleet arrives at our doorstep, probably to prevent a marriage that could technically start a war. Suggestions? We could evacuate the station, the communications officer suggested. 17,000 people in 6 hours? Hayes shook her head. Not possible. We don't have enough ships. We could surrender Lady Zarath to her people, another voice suggested. No, Marcus said firmly. That's not happening. Mac, be reasonable, Hayes said. 17,000 lives against one person's freedom of choice. Commander, with respect, that's exactly the kind of thinking that humans are supposed to reject. We don't sacrifice individuals for convenience, no matter how many zeros are involved in the math. Zarath placed her hand on Marcus's arm. Mac, perhaps... No, he said again. You asked me to marry you because you wanted what humans have. Well, this is what we have. We don't abandon people who come to us for help, and we don't back down from bullies, no matter how big they are. Hayes studied Marcus's face and saw something that reminded her why humans had earned their place among the stars despite their technological disadvantages. It wasn't their weapons or their ships that made other species respect them. It was their absolute refusal to be intimidated. All right, she said. We do this the human way, but we're going to need more than stubbornness to pull this off. Marcus was already thinking ahead, his engineer's mind analyzing the problem from multiple angles. What exactly do they want? To stop the marriage or to take Zarath home? Both, Zarath replied, but primarily to prevent the marriage. Once it is completed, their legal position becomes much more complicated. So we have a window, Marcus mused. How long does a Veltai marriage ceremony take? Hours. Normally, but human ceremonies can be quite brief, correct? Hayes nodded slowly. 5 minutes if necessary. Say the words, sign the documents, done. Then we get married now before they arrive, Marcus said. And then what? Hayes demanded. They show up to find the marriage already completed, and they respond by turning us all into space dust out of anger? Maybe, Marcus admitted. Or maybe they find themselves in a position where destroying us would violate several galactic treaties and create a diplomatic incident they can't afford. Zarath's eyes brightened. The Preservation Accords. Any signatory species that destroys another species' territory as retaliation for a legal action faces economic sanctions from the entire Galactic Union. Would that matter to people with their level of technology? Hayes asked. Yes, Zarath said firmly. My people value their position in the galactic community above almost everything else. They would not risk isolation over this matter, no matter how angry they become. Marcus could see Hayes wavering. Commander, we're not just talking about one wedding here. We're talking about the principle that humans have the right to make their own choices without interference from alien powers. If we back down now, every human colony becomes a potential target whenever we do something the big players don't like. That argument hit home. Hayes had spent her career defending human independence on the frontier. She understood exactly what Marcus meant. "All right," she said finally. "We do this, but we do it smart. Full documentation, multiple witnesses, and we transmit everything to Earth and the Galactic Union simultaneously. If the Veltai want to object, they can do it through proper diplomatic channels." The next hour was a whirlwind of activity. Hayes called together a hastily assembled group of senior staff to serve as witnesses. Marcus and Zareth completed their legal documentation, while the station's communication officers prepared a full diplomatic packet for immediate transmission. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the station's chief medical officer, performed a quick examination to confirm that both parties were mentally competent and acting of their own free will. The legal department worked frantically to ensure every document was properly filed and certified. "You know," Dr. Walsh said as she completed her examinations, "in all my years practicing medicine, I never thought I'd be conducting a prenuptial psychological evaluation for an interspecies marriage that might trigger a war." "First time for everything," Marcus replied, adjusting his dress uniform. Hayes had insisted that if they were going to make galactic history, they would do it properly. Zareth had changed from her diplomatic robes into a simple white dress that she had somehow managed to acquire from the station's civilian population. The effect was striking. She looked less like an alien noble and more like any nervous bride preparing for her wedding. "Any second thoughts?" Marcus asked quietly as they stood outside Hayes's office, which had been hastily converted into a wedding chapel. "Many," Zareth admitted, "but not about marrying you. About whether we will live long enough to enjoy it." "We'll figure it out," Marcus said confidently. "Humans are good at that." The ceremony itself took exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Hayes spoke the required words. Marcus and Zareth exchanged vows that they had written themselves, and the documents were signed with 17 witnesses present. "By the authority vested in me as commander of this station and representative of the United Colonies of Earth, I pronounce you husband and wife," Hayes said solemnly. The kiss that followed was brief but genuine, and in that moment, the legal and political landscape of the galaxy shifted in ways that would take years to fully understand. "Transmission complete," the communications officer reported. "The marriage documents and full diplomatic packet have been received by Earth Central and the Galactic Union headquarters. Now we wait," Hayes said. They didn't have to wait long. Less than an hour after the ceremony, long-range sensors detected the Veltai fleet dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. "Veltai Dreadnought Eternal Dominion, requesting immediate surrender of the fugitive Zareth." Hayes took a deep breath and activated her response transmitter. "This is Commander Sarah Hayes of Kepler 442 Station. There is no fugitive here. There is, however, a legally married human citizen named Zareth Chen, who is under the protection of human law." The pause that followed seemed to last forever. "Commander Hayes," came the reply, the universal translator struggling with the obvious anger in the alien voice. "You have interfered in Veltai internal affairs. Return our citizen immediately or face the consequences." "Respectfully," Hayes replied, "your citizen chose to become a human citizen through legal marriage. She is now under human protection. Any action against this station would constitute an act of war against the United Colonies of Earth and a violation of multiple galactic treaties." In the background, Marcus could hear frantic activity as the station's skeleton crew prepared for what might be their final hours. But there was something else in the air, a sense of determination that he recognized as uniquely human. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they were not backing down. 5 minutes, Zareth whispered to him. "If we had married 5 minutes later, they would have arrived in time to stop us." "Good thing humans don't waste time," Marcus replied. The alien fleet was taking up positions around the station, 17 warships forming a perfect sphere of overwhelming firepower. But they had not fired yet, which Marcus took as a positive sign. "They're hesitating," he observed. "Because now it becomes complicated," Zarath explained. "They expected to arrive and find an unmarried alien citizen who could be legally claimed. Instead, they find a human citizen who is legally protected. If they attack now, they risk everything they have built in the galactic community." "So what happens next?" Hayes asked. Marcus looked at his new wife, at the crew members around him, and at the impossible situation they had all chosen to face together. "Now," he said, "we find out just how much the galaxy is willing to change for the sake of love." Realized that this was exactly the kind of impossible situation that humans specialized in. Everyone said it couldn't be done, that the obstacles were too great, the odds too long. But humans had a funny way of proving everyone wrong. The standoff lasted 3 days. For 72 hours, 17 Veltai warships maintained their positions around Kepler 442 station, while inside, 17,000 humans and aliens went about their daily business with the kind of stubborn normalcy that had come to define humanity's response to impossible situations. Marcus continued his maintenance rounds, checking life support systems and reactor efficiency as if the most powerful alien fleet in the galaxy wasn't poised to destroy them all. Zarath worked alongside him, learning to use human tools and marveling at the practical ingenuity that went into keeping a space station operational. "Your people," she observed on the second day as they repaired a malfunctioning atmospheric filter, "do not seem particularly concerned about the fleet surrounding us." Marcus paused in his work to look at her. In her maintenance coveralls, with grease smudged on her cheek, and her luminous hair tied back with a simple band, she looked less like an alien noble and more like any human engineer. The transformation was remarkable. "We're terrified," he admitted. "But fear doesn't stop the work from needing to be done. Those ships out there, they're someone else's problem. This filter is mine." It was a uniquely human perspective, and Zarath was beginning to understand why her people both respected and envied humanity. Humans didn't let the impossible paralyze them. They focused on what they could control and trusted that somehow everything else would work out. On the third day, everything changed. The first sign was the arrival of additional ships, not Veltai vessels, but representatives from a dozen other galactic species. Word of the marriage and the subsequent standoff had spread throughout the galaxy faster than anyone had anticipated. "Commander," the communications officer reported, excitement barely contained in her voice, "we're receiving diplomatic communications from the Kaleth Federation, the Zephyrian Alliance, and the Centauri Trade Consortium. They're offering support." Hayes looked up from the situation reports she had been filing with Earth Command. "What kind of support?" "Diplomatic, primarily, but the Kaleth Federation has 6 cruisers holding position at the system's edge, and the Zephyrians are sending their entire diplomatic corps." Marcus and Zarath arrived on the bridge just in time to hear another update. "Additional contacts dropping out of hyperspace," the sensor operator announced. "I'm reading human ships. Lot of them." On the main display, the tactical situation had transformed overnight. What had begun as 17 Veltai ships surrounding a defenseless station had become something much more complex. Human vessels had arrived from 3 different systems, forming a loose defensive perimeter outside the Veltai formation. "Earth Command is hailing us," the communications officer said. Hayes activated the link, and Admiral Morrison's weathered face appeared on the screen. "Sarah," the Admiral said without preamble, "you've really stepped in it this time." "Admiral, Relax, Commander. You did exactly what any human officer should have done. You protected human citizens and upheld human law. Now we're here to back you up." Marcus felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with species loyalty and everything to do with fundamental human values. When one of their own was threatened, humans showed up. "What's the situation from your perspective, Admiral?" Hayes asked. "Complicated," Morrison admitted. "The Veltai High Council is demanding that we turn over Zarath, but they're also facing pressure from other galactic powers who are watching this very carefully. It turns out that quite a few species have been waiting for someone to stand up to Veltai arrogance." "And Earth's position?" "Simple. Zarath is a human citizen by marriage, and we protect our citizens. Period." It was then that Marcus realized the true genius of Zarath's plan. She hadn't just chosen to marry a human. She had chosen to marry into humanity's fundamental principles, and those principles, it turned out, were contagious. "Commander Hayes," came a new voice over the communication system. "This is High Counselor Veltarin of the Veltai Empire. We demand immediate conference." Hayes glanced at Marcus and Zarath. "Your call," she said quietly. Zarath stepped forward. "I will speak with them," she said. "It is time to finish what we started." The conference took place in Hayes's office, with the High Counselor appearing via holographic projection. Veltarin was ancient even by Veltai standards, his skin bearing the deep silver patina that came with millennia of life. "Daughter," he said, his voice carrying the weight of profound disappointment. "What have you done?" "I have chosen life over existence, honored grandfather," Zarath replied formally. "I have chosen hope over certainty. You have chosen exile and disgrace. You have abandoned your people, your heritage, your very identity." "No," Zarath said firmly. "I have chosen to become more than I was." Veltarin's gaze shifted to Marcus. "And you, human, do you understand what you have taken from us?" Marcus met the alien's eyes without flinching. "With respect, High Counselor, I haven't taken anything. Your granddaughter made a choice. I just respected her right to make it." "Rights," Veltarin said with obvious distaste. "Human concepts. Order and tradition maintain civilization, not individual desires." "Maybe," Marcus said, "but individual desires create new civilizations." The High Counselor was silent for a long moment. "You believe your way is superior to ours?" "I believe our ways are different," Marcus replied carefully. "You've built something magnificent and stable. We're still building, still changing, still growing. Maybe there's room for both approaches in the galaxy." "And if we disagree? If we determine that this marriage threatens the stability we have maintained for millennia?" It was Hayes who answered. "Then you'll have to go through us to do anything about it. And not just humans, High Counselor. Look at your sensors. Half the galaxy is watching this conversation." Veltarin was indeed consulting his displays, and Marcus could see the moment when the full situation became clear to him. What had started as a simple matter of retrieving a wayward noble had become a referendum on the rights of individuals versus the power of established authority. "You humans," Veltarin said finally, "are extraordinarily troublesome." "Thank you," Marcus said sincerely. The High Counselor actually smiled at that. "I begin to understand why my granddaughter was drawn to your species." "What happens now?" Zarath asked. Veltarin studied her for a long moment. "Now we discover whether the galaxy has room for both tradition and transformation." He paused, then continued with what might have been respect in his voice. "You are no longer Veltai, granddaughter. By your choice and your marriage, you have become something new. I find that I am curious to see what that something will be." The projection flickered out, leaving them in silence. "Was that a blessing or a threat?" Hayes asked. "With my people," Zarath said thoughtfully, "the two are often the same thing." Over the following days, the crisis resolved with the kind of messy compromise that typified human diplomacy. The Veltai fleet withdrew, but not before establishing a cultural observation post in the system, essentially an embassy that would allow them to study this unprecedented development. Other species followed suit. The marriage of Marcus Chen and Zarath became a focal point for discussions about individual rights, cultural integration, and the future of galactic civilization. Marcus found himself reluctantly famous, conducting interviews with galactic media outlets and fielding marriage proposals from alien nobles across the galaxy. Apparently, the idea of choosing one's own path was catching on. "Any regrets?" he asked Zarath one evening as they sat in their new quarters, watching ships from a dozen different species come and go from the station. "Only one," she said, leaning against his shoulder. "What's that?" "I regret waiting so long to ask you." Marcus laughed. "You know, we're probably going to be dealing with the consequences of this for the rest of our lives. Diplomatic incidents, political complications, media attention." "Sounds like a very human problem," Zarath observed. "Meaning?" "Meaning we will find a way to solve it, one day at a time." 6 months later, Marcus was promoted to Chief Engineering Officer of the newly expanded Kepler 442 station, which had been redesigned as humanity's first truly multi-species colony. Zarath established the galaxy's first institute for cultural integration, helping other individuals navigate the complex process of choosing new identities. They received regular updates from across the galaxy. The Veltai birth rate had increased for the first time in centuries, as young members of their species began to embrace uncertainty as a source of strength rather than weakness. 3 other alien nobles had married into different species, each using Zarath and Marcus as legal precedent. The galactic community was changing, slowly but inevitably, in directions that no one could have predicted. "You know," Marcus said one day, as they worked together to install new atmospheric processors designed by a joint human-Veltai engineering team, "I think your last hope turned out to be everyone's first hope." Zarath smiled, her expression now mixing alien grace with distinctly human determination. "Hope has a way of spreading, my love. It is perhaps the most contagious thing humans have created." "And the most powerful," Marcus agreed. In the end, the marriage had been about much more than 2 individuals choosing to build a life together. It had been about proving that the galaxy was large enough for every kind of love, every kind of hope, and every kind of future that sentient beings could imagine. It had been about demonstrating that sometimes the most important battles were won not with weapons or technology, but with the simple human conviction that everyone deserved the right to choose their own destiny. And in a galaxy where ancient civilizations had grown comfortable with the status quo, that conviction proved to be the most revolutionary force of all. Marcus Chen had married an alien noble and inadvertently sparked a galactic renaissance. But when people asked him about it years later, he always gave the same answer. "I just fixed what was broken and kept the important things running. That's what humans do." It was, Zarath would add with a smile, the most human response possible, and it was exactly why she had chosen to become one of them. Behind them, the atmospheric recycler hummed quietly, repaired and functioning perfectly. Soon, Marcus thought, they would have much bigger things to fix.